Meet Queen Elizabeth's favorite daughter-in-law, the royal family's secret weapon, a savvy peacemaker, capable of smoothing the choppy waters between the Sussexes and the rest of the firm, the Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie. Prince Edward's wife worked in PR before royalty, and is close to the future Queen Consort Catherine, and there's no shortage of extraordinary claims that have been made about the royal, who celebrates her 25th wedding anniversary with Prince Andrew today. In her early years, transitioning to become a full-time royal has had her fair share of headline-making moments. But what else is there to know about the former Countess of Wessex? Sophie was born Sophie Helen Rhys Jones in January of 1965 in Oxford. She's the second child of Christopher Bourne Rhys Jones, a retired salesman, and the late Mary Rhys Jones, who was a secretary. She has one older brother named David. As a hotshot PR girl, she worked for Capital Radio before, in 1996, she launched her own public relations agency, RJH Public Relations, which she ran with her business partner, Murray Harkins, for 5 years. Edward and Sophie were married at Windsor Castle in 1999. In terms of royal weddings, it was a rather intimate affair. The royal couple reportedly first met in the late 1980s when he was dating one of her friends. A few years later, in 1993, they crossed paths while Sophie was at a promotion shoot for Prince Edward's Summer Challenge. The pair started dating shortly afterwards, but it would be another 5 years before the prince popped the question. He got down on one knee while on holiday in the Bahamas in December 1998, presenting Sophie with a 2-carat oval diamond flanked by 2 heart-shaped gemstones set in 18-karat white gold. She'd been an absolute brilliant rock. I'm incredibly lucky that I found Sophie and that she found me. Hopefully we've been a really brilliant partnership, Edward said in a rare interview. Similarly, Sophie revealed, he's been my guide, showed me the way over the years, and I'm so proud of the man he is. He's the best of fathers, the most loving of husbands, and still my best friend. In 1999, the wedding of the Queen's youngest child to his beautiful bride at St. George's Chapel in Windsor was low-key by royal standards. There was no state or military involvement, but the television broadcast still attracted an incredible 200 million. Sophie's dress was designed by Samantha Keswick, a silk organza ensemble decorated with 325,000 crystals and pearls. Her head was crowned with the Anthemian tiara, named so because of the design. The Anthemian shapes consist of radiating petals, similar to a fan. It was chosen from the Queen's private jewelry collection. On the day of their marriage, Prince Edward was created a hereditary peer as Earl of Wessex, with the subsidiary title of Viscount Severn. The couple spent their honeymoon at Balmoral Castle. In the 25 years since she married Prince Edward, Sophie evolved from a PR girl into a respected and treasured member of the royal family, who found herself at the very heart of Her Majesty's inner circle. Indeed, Sophie once referred to the Queen by a deeply personal nickname, Mama, in a speech. In addition, her successful PR career was brought to a clattering end in 2001 when she revealed an embarrassing opinion, including describing the Queen as an old dear, to a reporter in the guise of a sheikh. There's no denying the admiration, love, and respect that Sophie had for the late monarch during her lifetime. And in turn, royal watchers have always noted how the Queen formed a special attachment to the wife of her youngest son, Prince Edward. Sophie never pushes herself forward or wants to make things about her. This was one of the reasons the late Queen was so fond of her, and probably one of the reasons her and Edward's partnership was such a success. The Queen is said to have trusted and relied on Sophie Wessex to a greater extent than many of her inner circle, including even the Duchess of Cornwall. Some royal experts claim she saw Sophie of more like a daughter than a daughter-in-law. The Queen and Sophie's close bond is said to be down to their similar interests, with the pair often spending Saturday and Sunday evenings together at Windsor watching old war films and historical documentaries. Sophie was often given the honor of traveling with the Queen when she attended church services at either Sandringham or Balmoral, which is said to be a sign of just how close they are. The Queen was the picture of propriety, particularly while on official engagements, so it was deeply significant when she, or at least her staff, allowed the then Countess of Wessex to refer to her by a deeply personal nickname in the speech. In 2019, the Queen and Sophie were on hand to celebrate the success of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Trust, of which they served as patron and vice patron when Sophie called Her Majesty Mama. Mama, when I have returned from my travels, I have been so proud to share with you the work I have witnessed being carried out under the umbrella of the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Trust, and the care of so many people working hard to save and cure sight, Sophie said. The former Countess of Wessex lives at her home in Bagshot Park with her husband Prince Edward and their 2 children, Lady Louise Windsor and James Viscount Severn. Unlike her royal counterparts, former PR manager Sophie chose not to give birth to her babies at a London hospital, instead opting for a hospital close to home, Frimley Park in Surrey. The royal experienced quite a traumatic birth with Louise, who was born a month early. However, labor went smoother with her son's arrival. On November 8, 2003, Lady Louise, who had been praised for her newfound poise and confidence, arrived to the world via emergency C-section, arriving 4 weeks before her due date. During the delivery, Duchess Sophie came near to death, losing 9 pounds of blood due to internal bleeding. Complications from her early birth left Lady Louise in estropia, a condition which meant that both eyes did not look in the same direction, and reportedly completely reshaped by her mother's character. In 2003, 4 years after her wedding to Edward, Duchess Sophie was thrilled to fall pregnant after a long wait. She was then aged 38 and decided to give up horse riding and eat a healthy diet to minimize all risk. At the beginning of November 2003, with a month still to go before her due date, everything seemed fine. So fine, in fact, that Edward went to Mauritius, a 12-hour flight away, for an official visit. But at about 6 p.m. on Saturday, November 8th, Sophie was struck down with crippling abdominal pains at Bagshot Park, the couple's forbidding Victorian pile in Surrey. By 8 p.m. she was in agony. The staff called the Queen's obstetrician, Sir Marcus Setchell, who instructed them to get Sophie to the nearest hospital immediately. They dialed 999 and waited for an ambulance, yet there was confusion over the call, and police officers rather than medics turned up, leading to a potentially calamitous 30-minute delay. The lives of Sophie and her baby were hanging perilously in the balance. Edward had been contacted in Mauritius, and there was no way he could return until the next day. At Frimley Park Hospital, 4 miles from Bagshot, where a medical team was placed on standby. When Sophie arrived, they realized she needed an emergency cesarean. She was showing signs of acute placental abruption, in which the placental lining separates from the uterus. It can result in colossal blood loss for the mother, while babies may become distressed and can be stillborn. Sophie's condition was so advanced that it was threatening to kill both her and her baby. Sir Marcus had made it to the hospital from London at lightning speed and oversaw the operation, which was carried out by a surgeon, Sukhpal Singh, gynecologist Anne Deans, and midwife Adrian Price. The moment the baby was born at 11:32 p.m., weighing just 4 pounds 9 ounces, she was taken from her mother and rushed to St. George Hospital in Tooting, London, for neonatal unit specialist care. Meanwhile, Sophie was just 15 minutes from death. She was losing a significant amount of blood and had slipped into a semi-conscious state. It took a massive blood transfusion, around 9 pints, before she regained any kind of stability. For the next 24 hours, she stayed at Frimley, sedated, alone and distressed at being apart from her baby, of whom she'd only gotten a glimpse. Edward didn't make it back to Britain until the following evening. He had no idea how serious the situation was, and went as white as a sheet when he found out his wife nearly died, and the baby was in a specialist unit. Sophie was too ill to be moved to be with her baby for another 6 days. By the time mother and child were reunited at the end of November, Sophie was utterly exhausted. It's believed that she did not breastfeed Louise and was constantly by her side. The situation was so grave that the late Queen, a close friend of Sophie's, decided to break royal protocol and secretly visit her in the hospital. When Sophie came out of the hospital, she told a friend that all the plans she had made have gone out the window, that it had been the most frightening time of her life. When mother and daughter were reunited at the hospital, Prince Edward told the press outside, "The important thing is that this has been a fantastic day of our lives, a day of great relief and joy, and it's difficult to explain what it is to be together as a family for the first time." But she braved the thought of having another baby, and is believed to have undergone several rounds of IVF before becoming pregnant with James, Viscount Severn, in 2007. Sophie chose to return to Frimley Park for birth, a testament to the excellent treatment she had received there, and it went smoothly. As a result of her traumatic premature birth, Lady Louise had astropia, a rare condition that causes her eyes to look in different directions. Thankfully, the arrival of Edward and Sophie's second child on the 17th of December, 2007, was much plainer sailing. James entered the world at 4:20 p.m. on a Monday, with Dad Edward describing his son as very cute and very cuddly. Sophie Wessex was determined to give her son and daughter as normal a childhood as possible. Despite their position as the late Queen's two youngest grandchildren, they go to friends for sleepovers and parties. "At weekends, we do a lot of walking and stay with friends," she once said in an interview. "I guess not everyone's grandparents live in a castle, but where are you going is not an important part, or who they are." When they are with the Queen, she is their grandmother. Sophie and Edward decided not to give their children the title of His or Her Royal Highness. Their children attended local schools, and Lady Louise even has a job at a garden center before winning a place to study at St. Andrews University. The proof of Edward and Sophie's parenting is evident in the quiet success of their daughter, Lady Louise Windsor, who has emerged as a royal star in her own right. The unassuming teenager, often seen in country casuals or prim dresses, spent her childhood largely out of the spotlight, but has recently taken on increasingly public roles alongside her parents. Never putting a foot wrong, Lady Louise channels her mother's understated nature on royal engagements, but like her grandfather, is most comfortable when surrounded by horses. Mother to Lady Louise and James, Sophie balances parenting responsibilities with official duties and charity work, a load which has only increased in the years since Prince Andrew and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have stepped back from royal life.